getting the live stream up and running. Yeah, okay. Just got to connect. Thank you. All right, we'll get the workshop underway. The workshop, as everybody's aware, is the Hokitika Wildfoods Festival. I will remind everybody that the purpose of this workshop is for an open discussion on the wild foods, Hokitika Wildfoods Festival. We will not be making any decisions here. As everybody's aware, or passing any resolutions. It's important today that we actually get our head around the whole situation of the wild foods, how it works. It's not about just shutting it down and say, oh no, I'm not going to do that anymore. There's a consequence to that. So today is about getting our heads around how it's performed, where it's going moving forward, where does it sit in the community, impacts on community groups, etc. So that when we do get to a stage of making a decision, it's going to be a very informed one, and it may mean that we actually take this out to the community for a wider discussion as well, because it's important that we get a really good mix of impact by the way of local businesses, businesses further out of town, and the community groups. So yeah, this is not a quick and easy decision. This is something that's going to have a little bit of work done on it and time. So thank you for everybody for attending, and to those that have zoomed in, and Councillor Beard for zooming in from Australia. Thank you, Donna. We have Councillor Matchwick, that is an apology for today. Apart from that, everybody else is here. So the workshop items, we've got the discussion up front, but what I've also done is I've invited Jackie Grant to come and talk to us. She's got a very, very reasoned outlook and thought process on the wild foods, and I have had the privilege of having a discussion with her about it. And also with that, we've also got Vicky Keenan here, who has run the Wild Foods Festival, as has Councillor Cassons, and we've actually got two people here that can actually answer questions as well, or give us an insight into different aspects of it, or correct anything that's a misconception or anything else. And with that, we've also got the Chair of Destination Westland, Chris Gooley, and of course Mel Anderson as the CEO of Destination Westland, and other members of our community. Welcome. So, Jackie, do you want to get up and kick the ball off with this, or do we start? So, yeah, because we're here to talk about the future of it, where it sits, what we do, what we don't do, and everything else. So, Jackie, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, councillors, for the opportunity to talk to you. I guess I'm a bit like Joe Biden. I'm getting a bit old, so I need to refer to my notes. So I don't know whether I'm going to trump you or just, bide me time. Personally, I don't like Wild Foods Festival. I think it's a load of crap. It doesn't float my boat at all, but I have to look at the bigger picture for the whole community. Just because I don't like it on a personal level doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. Just to give you a little bit of background, that's the day my business has its worst turnover of the year. We go down from, on a normal Saturday, about $1,000 to $1,500. We go down to $200 or $300 on Wild Foods Day, because people are not coming to buy socks, they're coming for wild foods. So there's no direct benefit from the Wild Foods Festival on that aspect of the event on the day. But as I said, it's not about me, it's the fact that we're a tourist town. Like it or not, we are a tourist town. If you look around the shops and the businesses, probably 90% of them are tourism related. And the benefit that we get from the brand recognition from the Wild Foods Festival is enormous. If we started to quantify that in monetary terms, it would be in the millions and millions of dollars over the years. Now, my advertising budget for my business is $200 a year, and I turn over, I'll say between $600,000 and $1 million a year, and I spend $200 on advertising. I ride off the back of things like the wild foods, and mainly the wild foods. I had a friend in China couple of weeks ago picked up a magazine on a tourism rack in China, and there was Sock World and the Wild Foods on the same page. So, and that was from years ago when the Chinese delegation came through. So that stuff just keeps going round and round and round. It's an iconic event. It's been going for 30 years, as you all know, and we just really need to quantify that benefit in economic terms. Having said all that, it has become stale, it's expensive, and over the years the hunters are probably getting less value for their money. Years ago we used to have events, we'd have the before match function, you know, the beach party, or what did we have, Evan Jones of the Beach Boys one year, and then there was the after function party, and people paid a bit extra to go to that. We seem to have got so PC that we've cut those things out because one or two complaints. We used to have markets all up the main street. It was great, and interestingly enough, when we did have the markets, my turnover increased a little bit. It didn't go down even more, it actually went up. So we've got to somehow appease those PC police in town and make the thing a little bit more user-friendly, and make it so that when people come, they want to book that day for next year because they've had such a good time. Just coming for one day and 5 or 6 hours in the afternoon, early evening, and then boom, you're left dead. What do? There's nothing else going on. Council have used, I guess you could call them dedicated contractors on short-term contracts to run the show. And a good example was 2016. And it got a revamp then and sold, we're told, 8,000 tickets, had markets in town, an after party, and managed to cut some costs. I don't know whether it made a profit that year or not. Maybe Ashley can tell us. I think that was your year, was it? Yeah, correct.
I believe it did make a profit that year.
And what I see is we had Mickey Keenan running it for many, many years. And I stand to be corrected, but I think there was a lot of creative accounting went on from council's end when Mickey was running it. If you've got Mickey working 12 months of the year, and all that money is charged to the Wild Foods Festival, which was probably only 3 or 4 months of the year dedicated to that job. The other money was transferred into God knows where for other things. And I think that the festival has made a lot more profit than we've ever been told about, and due to the creative accounting and moving money around, moving figures around, it comes out showing a loss. But from my understanding, the poor old festival organisers have had to start at square one, whether they made a loss or a profit each year. They've gone back to square one. And that's just not the way to run something that should be run as a business along business lines. If you've got 8,000 people coming to an event, 10,000 people, you've got to be able to make a profit. It's a no-brainer. But if you give away 2,000 tickets or whatever, and I think probably in the last one, there was probably way over 1,000, maybe 1,500 tickets given away free. You know, every stallholder gets 10 tickets, all the councillors get free tickets, the development trust got free tickets, you know, free tickets all over the bloody show. You can't run a business like that. You can't do it. I personally think we need to go back to managing the Wild Foods Festival in-house, and maybe even to the point of having a joint partnership with a community organisation. But I think it's imperative that council keeps ownership. If they go into some sort of partnership with a community organisation, you must keep the ownership, because that is an iconic brand that belongs to Westland. It doesn't belong to any individual organisation except the people of Westland via its council. I think a good start might be to get half a dozen people out of the community who've got an interest in it, to form some sort of working party. And we have had that before, and I think it worked really well. For whatever reason, it was dropped when everything was transferred. that working party could come up with a broad direction and assist council in coming up with some sort of concept. If I was there, I'd be suggesting that we drop the word feral and we drop the word wild, and we have it as the Hokitika Foods Festival, and we come up with some other concept rather than the feral fashion. But that's just my opinion. If we drop the word wild food, then we open up to more gourmet type foods, and maybe it will be a little bit more interesting and a little bit more appealing to more stallholders and more punters coming along. If you want to make money, you've got to spend a bit, so you've got to have good entertainment. Council is really happy to fund projects like the museum. It's been closed for nearly 8 years with its enormous wage bill, but we suddenly find ourselves sitting around the table here talking about, what is it, $80,000-$90,000 seed money for wild foods festivals. It just doesn't make sense. It looks like we can't see the wood for the trees when it comes to some sort of iconic attraction. It'll be interesting to do a cost-benefit analysis between those two activities, the museum and the Wild Foods Festival. I'm sure Wild Foods will be the winner. Just something to think about. Contrary to popular belief, councils do have a wider mandate than just roads, sewerage, and those, what we like to call the core functions, and let's all get back to basics and all the rest of it. We are a community. The government has mandated that councils do have community functions, and this is one of them. You've taken it on for the last 30 years. You cannot just drop it like a hot potato. You've got to come up with another plan. Just to conclude, it does need a revamp. It needs far tighter management than it's had, and an oversight. It needs some checks and balances there. It should be profitable. It should stand on its own feet. Take a leaf out of Anna Dysell's book with the Kids' Day. She can run that big event on Cass Square. No problem at all. Why can't we? Most of all, just give the punters a good experience, a great experience, and leave them wanting more, and that the whole thing will take care of itself. Now, I'm quite happy to answer questions, but you know, Mike Keenan's run it for 21 years. You've got Ashley who's run it. They're probably better to answer any technical questions.
Not better than Joe Biden.
How come you don't like it on a personal note?
Eh?
How come you don't like it on a personal
It's
note?
not my thing. It doesn't grab me. No sock machines here, so I don't give a shit about it.
Why don't you take your socks?
Eh?
Why don't you take your socks off?
It's just not my thing. I've been once. I've been once. It's not everybody's thing. It's got its own market. It's got its target market. But for Westland, it's done a huge amount of good.
And social wellbeing is one of those 4 points that Jackie made reference to. It's social, economic, environmental and cultural wellbeing. All 4 points that councils are charged with ensuring that they manage and represent their communities with.
If you've got a tourist town, and okay, we're a dairy factory town, we're a mining town, but predominantly the town is tourism. We've probably got as many people employed in tourism as everything else. And we can argue about lower paid jobs and all the rest of it, but we are here. That's what it is. That's the reality of it. And if you're going to have a tourist town, then you must advertise it as a tourist town. Because I'll tell you what, if you drop the Wild Foods Festival, I guarantee Tanya up the road will grab it and run with it. That's the reality of it. We'll lose it, they'll benefit from it. They start turning into a tourist town and we start dropping that in favour of mining or whatever, which could be torpedoed by the next incoming government. Who knows what's going to happen. Tourism's been here for 25 years I've been here. We were pretty much starting off with tourism when I first arrived here, and it's built up phenomenally over those years. We could lose it just as easily, and you'll have a town full of empty shops.
Big consequences.
I just think there's a big difference between owning the event and running the event. That's the difficulty I've got. I'm just trying to get an idea of how the council got involved in Wild Food Festival way back.
Well, who knows?
How, why, and when?
Steve, who knows? But 30
The
years
man behind you probably does.
Mike probably does.
Yeah.
30.
When it was a community event that was run for 3 years, and then John Olsen, the CE of the Western District Council, thought it was a golden opportunity to promotion and tourism, exactly what Jackie's talking about. So he took it over. I was the events coordinator, and they saw it as a golden tree. And you know, the council have made a lot of money out of the wild foods. I can go back and look at the records and say from 2004 to 2009, we made $750,000 profit. And this council ear tagged it for what projects they wanted. They looked at, we paid $150,000 for Casquare development, Wadestone Island, 12,000, Well Lane, 15,000, 33,000. And you know, every year we started with a zero balance. And down here at the information centre, they took $250,000 off us. We paid for that, well the Wild Foods did.
Yeah, but that's not reflected in the numbers that we've got sitting in front of us. The only reason this thing's got legs is because of 90k the council chips in each year.
Well, it's actually it's more like 120,000 because we're content to have one of our subsidiaries run it at a $30,000 loss, and we paid them $90,000 to do so. So if you look at it, it's $120,000 off our bottom line altogether.
If you want to promote your tourist town, I would suggest it will probably cost you more like $1 million to do your promotion.
So do you think not a visitor would come here, or we're not to subsidise?
No, I'm not saying that. That's just ridiculous comment to make.
So, yeah.
What I'm saying is we get market share and advertise free, call it free, advertising worldwide because of the iconic Wild Foods Festival. You take that away, if we want to get that same market share, we're going to have to pay for it.
So who's paying for it? At the moment, who's paying for it?
The advertising.
No, they're just the Wild Foods. That's the council, right? And where's the council get its money?
They're not paying for the whole Wild Foods, they're subsidising it, but let's go right into the accounting. If you go right back through those books, as Mickey's just told you, if you know, you've got to be able to realise that money has been dragged out of this thing year after year after year for other projects. Staff have been charged to other things. It should, and I agree with you, it should stand on its own feet. It should be able to be run as a business, and it should make a profit or at least break even. But that's management. That's not the fault of the Wild Foods Festival. That's previous councils who have just sucked on the left tit of it.
Yeah, so if you're saying that councils have bled it dry, that would seem to argue, to my mind, that councils aren't the best custodian for the event and that it should be
I would probably agree. I would probably agree there. But council needs to retain ownership of it, because if you give it away to someone else, it could be sold, it could be given out of the area, it could be transferred. We saw what happened with AgFest. We had it. What happened? It ended up in Greymouth. So we must retain ownership. I've got no aversion to a partnership as long as we've got 51% ownership still.
See, I think it's something of a bottomless pit, because you've got councils.
Because you think everything's a bottomless pit.
No, it's not a bottomless pit. It ran out in about 97. The issue is that you've got councils all around the country bending over backwards trying to pinch visitors from one another's districts. And so Wellington's got its food show, Christchurch is putting that stadium up. We're all trying to get people to come and visit.
They're all copying Hokitika, aren't they?
No, what I'm saying, it would be farcical for us to try and build a rugby stadium here so that we could have the Crusaders games played here. So we cannot win that competition. And in the same way...
How much has the council paid to build that rugby stadium? So it's the same argument.
Yeah, it is. And I think it was a poor decision for the Christchurch ratepayer as well. But nonetheless, in this situation, it's about $120,000 that the ratepayer is losing each year to run this event. Now, if we...
They're not losing it though, that's where you're going.
Let me finish. If we decided not to do that, that $120,000 is freed up for business owners like you that would not come off your rates, and then They are free to sponsor, to donate, to advertise, to pay for stalls and all of those other things. That money goes back into circulation and it can be spent elsewhere. It's simply a question of whether or not the council should be using its powers to take it off people through rates and force the event to happen, or whether or not we let business owners and stall holders and event attendants come together through voluntary mechanisms.
Can I answer that? When the council did run the thing, we didn't actually have any seed money given to this, but when it was transferred over to Destination Westland, then they couldn't borrow any money because they were a commercial entity. So we used to get $90,000 off one game machine because of the contacts. So basically, if it goes back into council, you could actually go back and get this funds again. I know it's supported by another charitable organisation at the present time, but the thing about it is that we stood on our own 2 feet, Patrick. You know, you got to look at if you gave it away, as Jackie said, it'd be like Andrew. Somebody will grab it. Do you want that to happen? Do you want to?
It's that wider benefit that we get, that all businesses get from it, but you can't. There's not enough all businesses to fund it, and if you take it out of council ownership, or you immediately turn it into a tax-paying business. It'd lose any charitable money that it can bring in, and it does get money in.
Well, not if a community group, an incorporated society or charitable trust were to run it as an event, and that would be free to solicit donations.
I think it's pretty dodgy. I personally think it would be pretty dodgy from an accounting point of view to still say that was a charitable.
I think it's dodgy at the moment from an accounting point
Oh,
of view.
absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. But I think if you gave it to a ordinary trust or something and they started running that, it's a business, they would lose their charitable status, in my opinion.
And we're talking two contrasting things. What Jackie's just said is quite right. And then as far as council or Destination Westland or whoever, it's just a matter of how it's been accounted for and how it's been run. That can be tidied up. That can be rescoped
and this is why I think to have a group of people that can actually hash all this stuff out, and Patrick and I can argue till the cows come home about spending $90,000, but at least we can hash it out and get a community group together and come up with a plan that, just might work.
I'm quite happy for the council to own the brand, but I still don't understand why we run it. If the thing's got legs,
Absolutely.
we can retain IP of this thing. Charge 10.
But you've got to find someone that can run, and to find someone that can run it, you're probably going to have to give them that same amount of money.
Why would we do that?
Well, you'd have to initially, because the thing's been bloody dry for the last bloody 25 years.
But that's more discussion that we've got to have as far as what we do with it and then how that's going to work or it should be working, and that's going to be another discussion with people that can actually find it.
I think this is more of a commercial activity.
It should be run as one, but it hasn't been.
Yes.
I mean, the last one, I had people coming into the shop giving me feedback. Tourists didn't know it was on, were told to go there, went there, sort of were not treated nicely at the gate, were, had their water bottles taken off them or whatever, all these rules and regulations. But the price was higher, and then they had other people in shops telling them that it was cheaper for other people. And, there was a whole load of things that needs to be ironed out and
But it's not been tidied up and put together. I mean, I met people at the Wildfoods and they now live here. In fact, I met two couples from Florida and they all both live here. They were going, actually, one of them was going to go to Greymouth to live. They live here now. So,
and while that's nice, there's a million other reasons people move here.
Of course there is.
Of course there is, Patrick, but it's all part of being a community. I'm not saying that we go back to the days with 20,000 people and people standing on the balcony of the railway hotel, pissing on the cars going past and all the rest of it, which used to happen. But I tell you what, there was a better time in those days than there is now at the Wildfoods. We had the poor old decrepit Beach Boys and Ray Columbus and people there. We rocked all night till 3 o'clock in the morning when those events were on around town, and all the stalls and things. It was really humming.
That's right, mate.
Nigel, do you want to address us too?
I'd like to follow on with some of what Jackie's comments are, and certainly a bit about a charitable trust running it, and I don't think that's a viable option. So I think on an accountancy point of view, you've got your documents and your paperwork. Go back to when the council took over the Wildfoods Festival and actually see how much money it has made you. I think you would find, Patrick, that you would still be in a positive figure.
I do too.
Sorry?
I do too.
Yeah.
In which case it would be a going concern to sell as a business or?
Well, can we just let,
All I'm saying is at the moment you're looking at a figure that is probably incorrect. Might have been last year's figure, but it's not the figure from the last 30 years. As far as Jackie mentioned Children's Day. Children's Day can't happen without Wildfoods Festival. We share costs, we share marquees, we share fencing, we share the square. We got approached by the council to run a children's event for National Children's Day. We were asked by council to see what we could do. We took that on board and we did that. It's a free event. Brings in a lot of people into town. Maybe you should also look at what positive aspects come out from that event and consider that both of those events, if you were to move one, if you're going to move one, you're going to lose the other. I think that's all I'd like to say. But I think there was in the paper something about being rained out. Okay. So the figure I've got for some insurances for that to happen as a horrendous weather event is not that high. And I just wonder if you guys can tell me, did you have event insurance?
that'll have to be answered by Destination Westland. Oh, did you? Sorry, on your turn?
I do not believe so.
Yes. So the figure to run, this is from my insurance broker, per $500,000 cover, it's $12,500. Right? So, I mean, I know that someone in council spoke about if it gets rained out, we lose everything. Well, I've just negated that for you.
What about the second year?
Thanks, Nigel. Very rarely is it 2 years in a row.
Sorry?
Thank you very much for that, Nigel. He was just asking if it was a second year, but that's what the price of insurance, isn't it?
Well, we can be as pessimistic as we like and come up with all the what ifs, but
How many Wildfoods Festival hasn't gone ahead because of weather?
one, the tents blew down from my memory.
Yeah.
Once. Yeah, it was pretty well finished by then.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you giving your time to come in and talk to us, because it's all very valuable for us, because we've got to think of the big picture with this. I can see that it's going to be more than one discussion point with this, but you know that's the need of this event. You know, it deserves the respect. It's been there a long time. It's been successful for a very long time. It's served a significant community purpose. I would think that the community groups collectively, for their fundraising that they do at Wildfoods, and that affords them the ability to run for the whole year. I'm thinking of the Hockey Association. I think Don told me that they get enough at Wildfoods to see their club function for a whole year. That's incredible. They won't survive without something like Wildfoods too. And when you look at how many groups there are, we're probably talking in excess of 100,000 value to those combined groups.
You make a good point, Helen, and that's something that Patrick and my friend over here need to actually take into account in their thinking, is all those other groups that would have to go somewhere else for their money and would probably be coming to council to carry on without that funding. Without
We could just give $100,000 just to the community groups.
Well,
You could, and you probably pay out more because you'll have more groups coming to see the cash cow.
And then you also lose the heart of the community. You risk losing those groups. If you do that, you've got nothing to offer people to come here and stay, to live, to work, to play. And that's what's
Was there anyone who came here at all up until the early 90s when we had a lot of food festival?
That's right.
And we had a pretty dull little town with not much happening in it. It was pretty much Sleepy Hollow until Bernie Radomski and a couple of those people came and started their jade shops. And who was the other one? Francois, you know?
I think you should give it to me, I'll sort it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember in the 1860s from all that.
And I agree with Francois. I could run the bloody thing standing on my head and arrange it too, and I'm nearly 81 years old. It's not a huge job. It is not a huge job to coordinate something like that. All you're doing is coordinating. But you look at that 90,000 or whatever it is, and look at the benefit that goes to all those wider groups, the whole community, the whole shooting box, and you tell me that it's not good value for money.
I don't think it's good value for money.
Thanks, Jackie, very much for that. Thank you. So, right. So, yeah, we've got quite a bit still to work through regarding this. And I'm quite kind of, you know, every discussion we seem to have, it seems to change as far as what's next, what's the next point of discussion, what's the next bit of information we need. As far as the ticket sales, underwriting, I mean, community groups, Chris, can you and Mel define any of that information more for us?
About tickets and complimentary, because I know that's a real
Yes,
discussion point and one of concern with a lot of people. Sorry, glasses. So one of the things is, and it's been about the amount of complimentary tickets. I won't go into too much detail on some of the complimentary because that is tagged with some of the sponsorship stuff, but I'll give you the overview. So in 2018 and 19, complimentary tickets were a ratio of 2 paid tickets to 1 complimentary ticket. Not naming names. In the last couple of years, that ratio has changed actually 8 to 1. And again, those complimentary tickets do include your stall holders, our tent people, you know, the ones that run our gates, our tents, our stall holders, and those, as well as those that are tagged with sponsorship as well. So that just gives you the sort of numbers. Total numbers of complimentary this year were around 800. 230 were with 100 of those were to a volunteer group that we work with very closely because of the work that, you know, was done. And there was another 130 for Kids Day. So that's, you know, out of those 800, over 200 are actually just there before we look at those 10 sponsors, just to give you a little bit more of an insight in there. Yeah, so that's where those sit. Yeah.
Is there a management agreement, formal agreement between council and DW for the event?
Don't believe so.
No.
And look, that's a really, really good point, because at the end of the day, we currently manage the event on your behalf and on behalf of our ratepayers in our community. So having a structured agreement, if, you know, that's where we're going, you know, this is the expectation. These are the things that we, you know, must see. That's all part and parcel. And unless that's in place, then it doesn't have that, you know, we have to be accountable for this, and this, if it's been loose previously. And so that is something that, you know, should be considered if that's the direction that council wants to stay with. Yeah, and that's a very good point, Councillor Gillett.
Because you didn't, like, DW didn't come beating on the council door to run this thing, begging to have it, did you?
Before my time, but my understanding is that that's not how the conversation went. But I wasn't in this seat, so I can't be 100% sure, but I don't believe so.
Any more questions on the tickets?
May I speak? We'd just like for open disclosure that the 100 tickets to a community group comes to Hokitika Community Trust. in Hokitika Community Trust, like manpower and everything, and setting up Wildfoods and Children's Day, we do a takedown, and for that we get 100 tickets. Also, for that, we provide for free a portal where I spend many hours along with our financial people doing the charitable trust applications and funding, but I'm not going to disclose funding.
That's just another discussion for a little bit later.
I was never going to
But that's thank you, Nigel, because all this information helps. It just helps get our head around what we're actually talking about.
And it is a partnership, as Nigel rightfully said, you know, it's the shared, you know, we get the tents and the fencing and stuff in 2 weeks, you know, for back-to-back weekends over.
Children's Day pay for some of it,
Yeah.
and Wildfoods Festival pay for some of it.
Now, just while we're talking about ticket numbers, in the report last month to council, ticket numbers were over the last 3 years, 1 year 7,000, 1 year 6,500, and 1 year 6,000.
Rounding.
Yeah,
So it's no different if you look at the above figures, you know, we were rounding to the nearest thousands. It's just if I rounded those figures to the nearest thousands, it would give you even less information.
You know, that's fine. So they sold tickets.
That was a combination, I believe.
6,500, it's the 800, it's now 5,708 tickets.
Now, what's the break-even point of ticket sales to break the festival even?
So that really.
How many tickets do you need to sell to break even?
It depends on the ever-increasing infrastructure costs. And for example, we are very limited where we can get our tents from. And so we are at the.
But you must have a formula to know where your break-even point is, surely.
But we start each year when we get an indication as what our, like this year, we're still gauging what infrastructure costs are going to be, and from that point it's really going.
So what was the break-even point last festival then?
It's about where it was.
Right, so you pretty much break even.
We look at the fact that there's that $30,000, whatever it was, rounding last year. That's got out the indirect costs associated with it. So that's got basically use of the office and you know, all of those other things that actually go in. But just to give an example, it's an estimate of the indirect costs that go into it. Take that line out and it looks completely different. But that's just to give a more, you know, when we're looking at the spread of organisational costs for that 12 months, you know, and that's where it comes into it. Statutory and public liability insurance that sits at the overhead here, you know, a portion of that goes obviously to Wildfoods, and all of those pieces. Share of his costs technically go to Wildfoods.
I mean, the last for the last 3 years.
Well, at least you know the accurate, you know, you've worked out pretty much break even plus 10% or whatever. How on earth do you run the thing without knowing what the costs are going to be? And it seems to be all arse about to me.
So we've only just started for this coming year.
Right, you've only just taken it over.
No, so we're new financial year.
Yeah, but you ran it last year.
Yep, and we can guesstimate what the infrastructure costs are going to be.
I can't run a business on guesstimation.
So in Nelly's defence here, let's just take the marquees as a baseline. 10 years ago, I think it cost $18,000. You can more than double that.
Yeah.
I don't think what Mel was saying was that we don't do any forecasting. We're using all the history of the last 3 years, all the costs associated with it. What we can't allow for is inflation, which we've been facing a significant amount of inflation over the last 3 years. We still build that and we estimate.
I understand all that, but to me, I don't know how you can run a business without doing, you know, planning on your costings and
We
things.
do that. I think it's not quite what Mel was saying. What we're saying, we're not sure often each year what the accelerated costs will be, but every year is last year's costs. as a budget.
Start point.
But I mean, for last year, you should be able to say, well, we had to have 8,000 tickets sold to break even, you know, or 6,000 or whatever the figure is, but that seems to be all, you know.
Well, we used to have and you backed it up, Ashley, is that we would have a 3-year contract with security, marquees, the whole work, so we knew that we were getting that price for 3 years. And that way, we knew exactly how many tickets we had to sell to do the thing. Right?
Some contracts in my days were that time, others were at year on year, there's a periods
We only
between.
3 years.
And some of the ones, our big ones, we have been unable to secure a more than 1 year contract with, because they're in business, they're commercial entities, they're looking at, you know, we still are out of it.
Increased transport costs.
Transportation costs,
fuel costs.
yeah.
No,
As the likes of the marquee, usually give us a 2 or 3 year contract, because they don't know what they're going to charge us next year. Sorry,
Just a question, I don't know what extent you can break this down off the top of your head, but just looking at the report we had at the last council meeting, excluding the $90,000
Yeah.
management fees,
Yeah.
so the two other items are $275,000 as revenue from the event, and the next one's $184,000 from grants and sponsorship. Is that sponsorship like a commercial sponsorship?
So
or is
all of
it-
that will be discussed in the next section
Okay,
due to
so,
commercial
yeah.
sensitivity. So, yeah, and we can dive into the nitty gritty of that, but as I said, commercial sensitivity, got to be very careful about, you know, those sorts of agreements.
In terms of the total revenue that you get, maybe this is for the non-public session as well, what percentage would be from ticket sales versus other sources of income?
For financials next
I
session.
look forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not because we're trying to hide stuff from the public or anyone in this room. It's actually, you know, especially if, you know, one of the discussions is around, you know, selling it or retaining some ownership. You don't want to give all your information to anyone coming in, because you actually devalue a brand, because they know right down, and you can get lowballed when you go into negotiations. You can't have it.
Right. Right. Any further questions? Councillor, go ahead.
My feeling is everything's got a shelf life. You've been running this for a while,
Yeah.
so you think the glory days are over. I think this thing's, the novelty feral aspect of that is gone. I just wondered where you think it could go. I just perhaps thought that we could use the brand and promote it more as a music orientated festival than move away from pie.
Yeah, look, and totally hear what you're saying, Councillor Gillett. This is a really good opportunity for us to have a look and go what draws our people in, and you will be privy to the perceptions report and other information from, you know, wider afield. This is what our patrons are actually looking for and what's stopping them from coming to the event. That there, you take some of that and have a look. Sorry, Jackie, did you want the floor? I would much like the
You see, there's this
Yeah, so-
festival, there's
yeah.
this festival, they call it Glastonbury, and it just grows every year,
Yeah.
and the kind of theme, and the festivals around the world, those festivals are on the incline rapidly. Everything
And,
else.
yeah, and so that's where having your event professional and to come and have a look and actually say, look, this works really well. The brand is internationally recognised. This is your draw card. This is what you can do to increase. And some of the things that have come back to us is actually there is no accommodation. Not everyone is an 18 to 24-year-old who's happy to camp down at Sunset Point, regardless of the fact that it's an awesome place to camp when you do come here. A lot of people do want a comfortable bed, and we don't have a huge amount of permanent accommodation available. The other thing is, as much as I thoroughly enjoyed the festival and its heyday with 20,000 people, the damage that was you know, and you say, look at it from the holistic. We want the numbers without the damage and the aftermath. We don't want the, we have a social responsibility to abide by certain rules and situations, which include what the police ask of us, the tri-agencies, health and community health, and everyone else in that space as well. So it's about balancing the size of the festival, what we have on offer, and the type of people we actually want here coming to the festival.
I think from the outside only, if you reflect on New Zealand post-COVID, the number of events that just popped up everywhere, music festivals. We're competing with a lot of people, and if you give away your key differentiator, there's a lot of risk associated with it as well. You just have to be very careful. Just because personally or perspective-wise you want to the Wild Foods concept, it is a differentiator nationally. It's still recognised as a national brand, and it's pushing its way through. That, you know, looking from the outside in, from Christchurch over here, I know what Wild Foods is, and I know it's different than other things that are offered across the country. So just be very careful with it, that's all I'd say.
Hence why both TV breakfast channels came to us and wanted to do crossovers, and National and ODT and Christchurch and everywhere wanted to do that. It is a recognisable brand, and we can use it, and we can do something with it.
You go head to head with some of the big cities in New Zealand against music festivals. You're going to they're going to be able to afford to pay for the bigger acts and the bigger events. You're probably not going to find yourself around much longer. So just all I just suggest is, you know, let's take the data that we've got and the information we've got around what the people that attended wanted to do and whether they enjoyed it or not, and reflect on that before you make a decision.
I think looking back at the heyday, as we call it as well, there were lots of negatives. And as a parent of teenagers at that time, it was pretty appalling. And I don't think we would have social license to keep on going like that. So something had to change, and it has. So it might have been scaled down. There might not be much money to be made, but maybe it's better.
And I mean, I think it's a great point. And the other thing you got to think through, coming from a risk perspective and on the governance, with the change to Health and Safety Act, the focus on work safe, all those sorts of things, there's a lot of risk associated with running an event like this as well. So we actually have to meet all those requirements now. It's the law. So we have to do a lot of things that you probably didn't have to do 20 years ago, 10 years ago, that you do today. And if you don't comply, there's actually real consequences for me as a director. So we have to put more energy into making sure that the events are safe for everyone that attends.
That's a really important point, Chris. The introduction of MPI and the rulings around that. Mickey, you all remember his days where whatever you could dream up to serve up, you could, and you could sell it and you could make money for your group. My days, that started changing pretty strictly, and that's changed even more since now. You simply can't do a possum pie and give it away and those things now. So the sheer nature of how the event started and where it did go in its heyday and the good times it did deliver good income to the council are a thing of the past, unfortunately, in that sense. It doesn't mean you can't come up with the weird and wackies that they do now, but there's an element of compliance with the MPI around offal and these other products that aren't certified or don't go through a certified butchery that you simply can't serve up to give away, let alone sell.
Yeah.
All sorts of risk management around that.
Council actually were the drivers to actually push the festival up. They told me that they wanted 30,000 people here. And we, after the 22.5, we actually decided that it was just too big. And so we asked for a review on the thing, and we actually got Lincoln University to come over and do a survey on the festival, and we drove the thing to actually reduce it down. And the council were actually driven by the magic dollar. And it was quite amazing. You know, we fought in the house with some of the councillors because there were 3 of them on our Wild Foods Festival committee. And so, you know, we had to reduce it down to make it a better experience. I mean, in those days, in 2003, we had 22,500 people. We only had 5 policemen in town. And, you know, today you have less than that, and the rules and regulations have changed. I mean, in those days, they were happy drunks. Today, you don't know what substance they're on. They could be something that's not out of a bottle today, you know, basically. So, you know, we did drop it down, and we did get a report on. And that report that we got from Lincoln, most of it was our input, and they charged us $50,000 for it.
So-called consultants.
Yeah, consultants.
Sorry.
And I would hate to see that go back to the 22.5.
We all would, yeah.
Because we sewed up 253 people that night.
So there might have been happy drunks, but not necessarily safe.
No.
Were there helicopters looking for drowned people, drowned or something?
Oh, there was one year, actually, quite right, there was one year, yes.
But that, all that, saying all that, with all these people saying all that, that doesn't stop us giving the punters that come to the food festival, and most people call it the food festival, let's just not beat around the bush on that. So food is totally different to wild food. If we call it the food festival, you can expand that range of foodstuffs and still have a wild theme. You can start doing salmon, egg, caviar or whatever, but duck fried rice, I don't know, you know, there's all sorts of things you can take those connotations. But what I'm saying is you can still give people a better experience by having the after-match party, by having something else so it justifies them staying in a tent down on the beachfront or whatever. They come here now, they come for the weekend, but it's only actually 7 hours and then they're stuck with nothing else. So organised entertainment that we're getting $1 off must help the bottom line, surely to goodness.
Well, it's also, like you said before, Jackie, about advertising. I mean, a lot of the people I spoke to, I wasn't at Wildfoods this year, but last year, they came and made the most of what the region had to offer. You know, they did the Hokitika Gorge, they went further south, they went north, they did everything while they were here. And that's what we've got to do, is actually promote the reason to stay longer.
Some people.
It's not just about a party, it's take the wider picture.
The younger crowd come here to party.
Yes, they do.
No two bones about that.
No.
They come to party.
Sorry, Nigel, just let Nigel to
As Jackie and I sometimes do disagree.
No.
No. While the Wild Foods Festival is brand, you just spoke about salmon, you spoke about duck, all wild foods. And I know that we use mountain tar that comes through a butchery, it's full of wild food. And there's lots of food festivals. So having a food festival is just like every other city that's having a food festival. And we are in the wilderness, you know. There is only 30,000 people here. And so big deal, it costs $1 a person to bring all those people.
And you're right, I mean, seafood is kaikura. We've got oysters down south, you know, Chatham Islands, you know, yeah, so it's about capturing that market and keeping that.
Wild foods will still have that whole array.
Everyone else will pitch our ideas, there's no reason we don't pitch everyone else's ideas.
Yeah, it's very simple said. No, that's really good. So we've got some more nitty-gritty information to get into. So this, I think, has been really, really of great value for all of us because, like I said, it's not a matter of, no, we're going to drop it. It's a matter of we can't just make that decision. This deserves to have a lot of recognition to the widespread it creates, it provides in the community and the wider community because, I mean, it replicates itself right throughout the coast, not just Westland either. So I want to thank you guys for coming in and offering us your discussion points and also being part of the conversation we've had because I think it's actually very, very valuable for the wider perspective.
Well, both Jackie and I do agree on it, would be remiss of the council.
Yeah. So no, that's good. And as I said, we're not making any decisions today. This is purely discussing where what's on the table, how do we reinvent the wheel or do whatever we've got to do. And I know that.
When will we make a decision out of curiosity?
I know what your decision will be.
No, I'm not asking of the decision, I'm asking of the timing of the decision. When will we actually make
Well,
a decision?
this next year's one's already been advertised, and then as far as an asset goes, we don't have to consult if we were say, just hypothetically, if we said we were going to sell it, we don't actually have to go out to the community and consult, do we?
Not with significant.
No.
But you would upset the
Oh,
community.
I know that, no, but we don't have to, as far as, as far as
Do you speak for the community, Nigel, or just one city?
No.
as far as a strategic asset, we don't have to, but I'm not saying that's what we're going to do, so, but, sorry.
No, I speak for the people who elect me,
Scott.
and I try and speak more widely.
Scott,
Well, I elected you and you're not speaking for me today.
No, vote for me, Extraordinary.
No, I think what we will be seeing is that there will be a request for councillors to get out and talk to the businesses, to the moteliers, to the tourism industry, to the community members, to the groups. Because it's important that everybody has those conversations and gets their heads around the big picture. It's not about you, me, or anybody else. It's about what it does and then how we're going to do this going forward and where it's going to sit. Scott?
All I was going to say, I mean, the one theme that I've heard all the way through today is the value of the grant.
Yeah.
And we just got to be really careful that we don't talk down the value of the grant.
Yes.
Because you end up with something that doesn't work very much. And this is an exploration of what works well with wild foods, how we might want to reinvigorate it if necessary. And there's clearly a discussion about how it's organised moving forwards, but I would be really careful about sending signals out to sponsors and other key partners in a negative way, because that's not the purpose of today's discussion. The purpose of today's discussion is constructive.
Scott, everything I've read in the media seems to be negative.
You know, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think there's an issue around us having this thing operate year to year. The discussions around who's going to run it. I don't think this thing's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Right? Whether it's a council kick or whether it's somebody else's kick.
I'd be very, if you were to sell it to a private owner, I know that sounds blasphemous to some people in the room, but if you were, I'd be very surprised if they were to take it anywhere else, because frankly, you couldn't run a wild foods festival in Auckland, for example.
That's what
Most
I mean,
other places are just.
I disagree with that.
They did.
Wearable arts.
They did.
The wearable arts. That used to be in Nelson, and then Wellington now has it. So those things that are iconic to a town and a city can easily be uprooted and moved. Very few people think of the wearable arts in Nelson anymore. They think Wellington.
Yes.
I know, but it's that same sort of thing. We do have to be careful with that.
There is the risk. There always
Councillors
is.
lived to regret that decision ever since.
They have, haven't they? Yeah.
Same as the Ellerslie Flower Show, there's another one that we've probably.
Yes. Councillor Christian, and then we move on
To have a crack at Councillor Phelps's question, if it's not part of a long-term plan discussion, I think we've done something wrong. Whilst it's not of significance in engagement policy, there's no way a decision can be made on something that's been a part of our community for 34, 35 years on a whim at a council meeting once a month. This is a long-term plan consultation with the community, or we've done something fatally wrong.
Well, I think that comes back to how this has been structured or not structured at
Regardless,
council over the years.
if it's not in the significant engagement policy, that's an aside. If we don't put it as part of a long-term plan discussion and have that with our community, we've done something wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, either that, we could structurally make it in, or if we were making a decision for whatever wider ramifications, we could still decide to go out and consult before making any final decisions on it. So.
Yes, Councillor Pete, then we'll move on to.
To be clear, the reason we're having this discussion about wild food is not whether we see the value or want to get into the nitty-gritty of the festival. It's actually triggered by our review of CCOs. This is why we're having this discussion.
Yep. Right, so with that, and we've covered off the tickets, underwriting, community groups. We're going to go into a public excluded section to mainly because we've got sponsorship, which some of that was in kind and has a commercial aspect to it, so I'm sorry to our guests. But from these discussions, what can come out into the public arena will be through a council meeting from this next section. So sorry that you're not going to be here for that part, but we are very, very grateful for you, for your input thus far. And I have no doubt that perhaps we'll be seeing you back here for stage 2 of the conversation. But thank you very much.